Hamid Koskun, 50, has been found guilty at Westminster Magistrates Court of a religiously aggravated public order offence after burning a Quran outside the Turkish consulate in London on February the 13th. And in the last few minutes, Mr Koskun has issued a statement saying his conviction was an assault on free speech and will deter others from exercising their democratic rights. Well, we can now speak with the social policy analyst, Dr. Rakib Ehsan. Rakib, always a pleasure to have your say. Undeniably, you could say it was a foolhardy and perhaps stupid thing to do to burn a copy of the Quran. The Batley Grammar School teacher still in hiding years later merely for showing a cartoon of the Prophet Muhammad. But today, the courts found it was illegal. It was racially aggravated as an offence. Is that the right thing to do? Does Islam, does the Muslim faith deserve special protection, or is this the back door to blasphemy laws in this country?
Well, Mike, it won't come as any surprise to you that I find the burning of the Quran, along with the promotion of derogatory cartoons of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, I find them to be grotesque acts. That's not a surprise, being a Muslim social conservative. But I think the issue here is that we're a country that has not had blasphemy laws since 2008. They were scrapped 17 years ago. And the issue with this ruling is that it could be perceived to be a revival of blasphemy laws. And I think that this is a fundamental problem from a freedom of expression perspective. I've often made the point that the freedom to dissent and indeed criticize and mock religion, these are cornerstones of liberal democracy. So I think that there will be people who will be very concerned by this ruling. But perhaps what this ruling really shows is that this is the reality of multicultural governance. This is the drawback of having a diverse society. So there'll be many people who may well welcome the ruling, but there'll be also people who won't welcome it at all, especially from a free speech perspective.
Rakib, do you reckon the government would have taken the same position if somebody had set fire to a copy of the Bible?
In my view, I think that it would be very interesting to see if it was a different holy book, what the ruling would have been. But I think that it's also a point to be made in terms of looking at attitudes across different religious groups when it comes to these freedom of expression issues. And that's a very difficult but much needed debate which needs to be had in the UK. I think that what many people will perceive this to be is a ruling which ultimately treats Islam differently to other religions which exist in modern Britain. And I think unhelpfully, I think this will reinforce the perception that Muslims are the beneficiaries of preferential treatment in the UK. And I also think, Moin, I've made this point before, that if you move into this kind of direction, I actually think this could risk increasing the burning of the Quran, because people feel, well, you're withdrawing my rights. And the reality is this is an act which actually doesn't happen very often in the UK at all. But say if you were to move towards banning it, then people might feel, well, I actually feel quite they might feel more rebellious. They might take kindly to that right being taken away. So I think some people who welcome this ruling, who don't want to see the Quran being burned, they should be careful for what they wish for, because this might be counterproductive.
Rakib, an extra plot twist to this story is that back in 2001, in his day job as a human rights barrister, a certain Sakir Starmer defended a client who set fire to the Stars and Stripes, burnt the American flag in protest outside a US airbase in Norfolk, saying flag denigration is a form of protest activity renowned the world over. And to show his support, he even wore a pair of Stars and Stripes underpants in court to show his support for her while sitting down for that hearing. So, again, it's like there's no way that would happen, for example, if somebody set fire to a flag, I don't know, of Pakistan or Palestine, is there?
Well, I think what's really interesting about this case, Martin, is that he's been found guilty of a racially aggravated public order offence. And I think that when you look at the law, as I've said before, we don't have blasphemy laws. They've been scrapped for some time now. And I think that when you look at those other cases, such as the case of burning the American flag. I think the issue here is that some people will say, well, this is a religious book. It means a lot to people. A lot of people will then say, well, the American flag means a lot to American citizens that live in the UK. So I think that what you run the risk here is opening a can of worms. And I think that the ultimate risk is that you reinforce views that a particular section of society are ultimately the beneficiaries of preferential treatment, and that ultimately undermines equality before the law, and also the idea that people are free to criticize religion in our modern society.